Hi, I'm Richard Randall, and welcome to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the owner of Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty. This is the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Colorado's Real Estate Authority, Barb Schlinker. Barb Schlinker is a retired Navy veteran. Barb's an author, and Barb Schlinker is a pilot as well. Barb and her team enjoy all that Colorado has to offer. Barb, always great to be talking with you. Now, Barb, I've heard you tell stories about people gaining access to people's homes. Now, in this environment where we have over 21 million illegal immigrants who've entered the country and were let go, now more than ever, people are really worried about empty homes. Should they be concerned about squatters? And how do you prevent squatters from occupying your home?
Well, if your house is going to be vacant, I would definitely um, get video cameras around it. Make sure you talk to your neighbors, ask them to let you know if they see anything weird going on, because once they get in, it's tougher to get them out. The laws in the state of Colorado are very tenant and squatter friendly. I hate to say that, but it's true. I remember talking to one of my clients. He had me sell one of his rental properties, and he had several. And he told me that he had squatters in the house, in the basement. And he said, "These people aren't my tenants." Called the police, and they said, "Sorry, you have to evict them to get them out." So I just read a story yesterday. It was in the local news. About William and Arlene. So they lived in this home for 50 years. William suffers from dementia, and he was out walking his dog, and this woman came up to him and, was petting his dog and befriending him. And then she convinced him to let them stay in the house for a couple of days in exchange for cleaning his house. So he agreed to it, and they never left. And since then, he got sick. He had to go to the hospital over a heart condition. So both he and his wife are out of this house that they've had for 50 years. The squatters are still in there with her son, with her aggressive boyfriend. The family's trying to get them out. And the police are like, "Sorry, they were given permission to come in. So therefore, you have to formally evict them." Could you imagine that, Richard? I mean, that's just crazy.
It is so crazy. I mean, and it just seems like the people who you don't want getting special privileges do, and the good, decent people are not protected.
Right. And, according to Fox News, the squatters are now getting free legal advice to stay in that property that's not theirs and they're not paying for. It's crazy. And it's so frustrating for homeowners because the squatters seem to have more rights than homeowners in this country and definitely in this state. I had another listing that was on the market. Even though I had staged some of the pictures, our local MLS requires that we put photos inside the MLS that show the original picture. In other words, if it's empty, I'll have the staging photos, but I also telegraph to the world, based on their rules, that it's empty with the empty pictures. So these druggies moved in. An agent showed up to show, not, she was trying to unlock the door, and these three guys showed up from inside the house at the door. And she goes, "Oh, I thought it was vacant." And the guy said, "Oh, well, the seller let us stay here for a while," which was not true. There were seven of them in there. So the agent called us, my assistant called me. I went over there, which I was kind of angry about it, and my husband's like, "Don't go, you're not the police." I'm like, "Well, anyway." So I went over there and just sat in the driveway. They all kind of scattered like rats. One of them came back and asked me to get his jacket out. And I said, "Don't you come back because the cops are coming." And sure enough, the cops never came, and they did not come back. They did come back. They came back probably a week later, broke in again after we cleaned everything up, got everything out. And what was in the house, just so you know, after they scattered the first time, were these weird chemicals laying around that weren't there before. They had food, You could tell they were enjoying the showers because the utilities were on and all that. And anyway, I found needles. So I don't know what took place in there. Chances are they were doing some drugs that probably could have contaminated the house. We never confirmed that. And then after the second time they moved in, I gave up. I was like, okay, I can't control this. I'm not the police. I don't have the authority to legally evict them. That has to be the family. They were out of state. When I did get a hold of them, I think his first reaction was, all right, I'll come over there with my gun. I'm like, yeah, we can't do that in this state, unfortunately. So he never came out. And then about a week later, I get a call from Colorado Springs Utilities saying, your water usage is really high at that property. And I don't own the house. The utilities aren't in my name, but my sign is in the yard. So the utility company went out there and saw the water usage. So put this in your mind, like it's a rectangle manufactured home, has a crawl space underneath that, probably 1,500, 1,800 square foot home that's at least 4 feet, probably 6 feet high. That entire crawl space filled up with water, so much so that the water was coming out the sides. And the utility company went there to shut off the water. So when I returned his call, I said, well, can't you lock them out of the water? And he said, no, because they're still in the house. You have to formally evict them. Then I called the utility company and said, hey, can't you just cut this off? And they said, no, you're not on the account. So even though I tried to help him, I couldn't. I didn't have the authority. So I called the family and said, please, please cut off the utilities. These guys are going to keep possessing this home. What they had done, Richard, is they had cut, this is so stupid. They're sleeping in the house, they're using the water, and they cut the copper pipes to sell it for money.
Oh
And
my God.
the water leaked all through the crawl space. It's just unbelievable. So even more recently, I had a listing that was basically in a very nice neighborhood. And because the MLS required me to put the pictures of the empty rooms, these drug addicts, they look for those kind of pictures on Zillow and Realtor.com. And then they just go over and they break in and try to steal stuff. Fortunately, there were cameras on the property. The neighbor had a beagle that alerted everybody at 5:30 in the morning, and that guy got caught. But that's not common. And he tried to break in. Fortunately, the seller had this really cool lock on the door. It was a back door to the garage. And he'd actually, this criminal had basically unscrewed the handle out of the door. So he could stick his hand in there, but there was another sliding lock beneath that he couldn't reach. And so fortunately, he did not get in the house, but he got in the shed and got caught walking down the street with a power washer. So I just don't want to do that. So I basically, it could have, first of all, having to evict somebody is one issue. It could take months. I'm talking, first of all, you have to post a notice, then you have to get a court date, then you have to get a judgment for possession. Hopefully the judge is friendly towards owners. And then you have to schedule a lockout. Now, all that whole process could take minimum 6 weeks, possibly longer. In the meantime, they're in your home, they're contaminating your home. Who knows what they're doing to it, right? And you can't do your own evictions. It's illegal in the Colorado. So you actually have to hire an attorney to go through that whole process. So that by itself costs thousands. And because of the new rental laws now, they're actually, these lawyers are starting to stand up special departments just to deal with all these. They do have a special carve out for deployed military members that you can actually get a court ruling in 48 hours. That's good. But in most cases, they don't. And so I think it's a huge risk to have a vacant home. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of the show, Your Real Estate Voice. And we're talking about how you can prevent squatters from moving into the home. And when we come back, we're going to talk about a couple of things that we can do to prevent squatters from invading your home. Richard?
Now, Barb, we're discussing squatters moving into homes and what home sellers can do about it. What are some other things that home sellers can do to protect their property?
Well, I would start with the security system. And it doesn't have to be a full-on one with all these big tech companies. You can buy fairly inexpensive cameras from like Blink or Ring or some of those places and have them set up around the house. And the apps are maybe $10 a month where you can see what's going on. And it's okay to, and it's simple enough that even I can do it. And I am definitely not very mechanical at all. So, that's one thing I would do. You would have to have Wi-Fi to make that happen. And I've seen people do that to protect their homes. The other thing is make sure your neighbors are paying attention to what's going on. I have them keep an eye on it, let you know if they see anything that's kind of weird. We as a company use an alternative MLS system, so we don't have to comply with our Pikes Peak MLS rules. And we do, just so you know, Richard, I get busted every single listing I put in the Pikes Peak MLS. I get a fine notice. Did you know that?
I did not. I mean, why don't they just do the right thing?
I'm on their radar for some reason. I don't really care. Most of it's a little technical stuff that has to be corrected, but this one thing, I had this one listing. It's empty, it's beautiful, it's in a nice neighborhood, but it's kind of hard to see the doors unless you're right across the street. So I decided not to put it in the Pikes Peak MLS because the rule says that when if you advertise a house online, this is a National Association of Realtors rule to protect other agents to help other agents getting into your listings. It's basically what it's about. So they basically created this rule back in 2019 that said if you're advertising any home, it must be in the MLS, but it didn't say which one. So I put it in this alternative MLS. Sure enough, bam, I get a $500 fine notice from Pikes Peak MLS, probably somebody turning me in to the MLS police. And so I called them and said, hey, it's in the MLS. I'm complying with the policy. Well, that's our policy. Of course, nobody's ever done this before. So they just create policies just for me, which I just kind of laugh it off and say, I am not going to advertise that that home is not occupied. I am very sorry. I'm not doing that. And they said, well, you have to put it in, but you don't have to put the inside pictures. So I had to shift to do that in order to protect my clients. And I've gotten just as many showings. It hasn't hurt at all. So I even had one time a seller basically decided they had a lot of stuff, big property. They decided to move out first and then do an estate sale with their stuff in the home. And the problem was they were across the country. They really didn't do any detailed oversight of this estate sale company. So anyway, it comes the day when the buyer's supposed to move back into the home, right? They're supposed to have everything out and cleaned up. We get there to do the final clean. It's still full of stuff. The estate sale workers were, no kidding, sleeping in the home. Richard, how would you feel about that?
I would wish that I had you representing me. I'd be angry as hell.
Oh yeah, and they tried to trash my reputation just because I called them on it and said, "What are you guys doing? You didn't get permission to sleep here. You were just here for the sale. The sale is over. Why are you still here?" And it wasn't like they were there for one night. I'm talking there were dried up wings in the refrigerator. I mean, it's really bad. So you have to pay attention to what's going on. Don't just trust people. That's what I'm saying. So if you want to know how to do this, give us a call. If you are thinking of making a move, even if you have a vacant house, we can protect you. Call us at 719-301-3900. Richard?
That is one of the many reasons I recommend you, Barb, a trusted Navy veteran. When thinking of buying or selling a home, Barb's your best bet. Richard Randall, you're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty. And you can always reach Barb at 719-301-3900, or of course, barbhasthebuyers.com. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the top reasons that a Colorado home is not selling and what you can do about it. Stay tuned for that.